Welcome to Ghostly. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Pat.
And I'm Rebecca.
And together we are Ghostly. In our last episode, we heard an interview with Holly of Paranormal Illumination Society. And I have to admit that I actually learned a lot from what Holly said. I don't know about you, Rebecca. Did you learn anything from that?
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh. I loved hearing her stories of and just learning how to approach an investigation and how to be safe with an investigation and watching yourself. That was really, felt really good to know.
Yeah. And I thought it really helped to know more about the equipment that's used for the investigating, especially coming up in our next episode. We're probably going to play a little couple seconds of some audio from one of those spirit boxes.
Oh, yeah. It was really cool. And I'm so happy that the interview happened before we actually did that, so I knew what it was. It was exciting.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we should probably go over the poll results before anything. So how did the people feel about Holly?
They said that they learned a lot.
Yeah.
Which pretty much 100% said yes, they learned a lot from her episode.
I mean, not pretty much. It was 100%. 100%. Yeah.
It was great.
So, thank you very much, Holly, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely.
All right, so today's episode is all about shadow people. And I have to admit that this is one of those topics that just thinking about it scares me. I don't know about you. Even though I'm a skeptic, my first impulse is always to pull back from this topic. But that's exactly why we should talk about it, right?
I have to say, when you came to me and you said, I've got an idea for our first episode of the new year, I want to talk about shadow people. I'm going to be honest, I had never heard of shadow people, but it scared me just to hear the word shadow people. I don't know what that is, but it sounds terrifying. So, I was very excited to do this episode.
Well, shadow people is kind of a huge topic, and we should break it down a little bit. So let's come up with a definition of what a shadow person is. So what exactly is a shadow person, Rebecca?
So it's a black shadow, but the thing is, it doesn't cast any shadow of its own. And the idea is that it isn't see-through. Okay. So when you look at it, it's like a big black mass that usually has human form. And people will describe it almost like a void or like a black hole. It's like the absence of light. Sometimes they'll say it has a little light around it, but the form itself is like almost like people say they feel like it's almost going to be solid, like you could touch it.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, as far as what is that shape, that is up for debate.
Yes.
So I don't know what you've learned on yours, but some people will say that they're ghosts, but that is actually not necessarily the most common.
Yeah. So the thing about shadow people is that we don't really know what or who they are. I've heard some people say that they are demons. Mm-hmm. I've heard some people say that they're time travelers that can't show themselves to us. Some people say that they're aliens, and others say that they're people that are living in a different dimension that we just sneak a peek. So a lot of times they don't even know that we are there.
Right. It's like they're on a loop or they're in their own area. And I've also heard them described in a couple different ways too, that some people find that they're menacing, that they're scary, and others find that they're like we just said, they don't even know that we're there. They're just kind of like whatever. The other is they're observing. So they're not necessarily, they're like neutral. And then I've read some stories where they're helpful. So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thought process that, you know what I mean? Like there's no one really seems to know exactly what they're supposed to be.
And there's one in particular, he supposedly wears a hat.
Yes.
And that one, they say that he really like looks through you. Like he sees you there and he knows that you're there and he is just as curious about you as you are about him, but he's not afraid of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really kind of a spooky idea. But also, too, shadow people can be that thing that you see out of the corner of your eye that you just know somebody's watching you. And you turn around to look and they're gone. So I think we've all experienced that to some degree.
Yeah.
Maybe not actually see the form of the shadow, but to have that feeling and have nothing be there.
Oh, yeah. Like you feel like somebody's watching you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, people will say, so sometimes people say that they see them straight on, but most of the time it's like out of the corner of your eye. It's like fleeting, you know, it's not, creepy.
So, so this episode's going to be a little bit different than our usual episode. Usually we tell a ghost story and then we debate the story. This is more of a concept than a story, though. So we're going to be debating a concept or an actual thing, which we don't typically get into in this podcast because then we could have a whole debate, are ghosts real? And we're not going to do that one. So I came up with this idea for this episode while talking to a good friend of mine. His name is Mike Morrissey, and he mentioned it in an interview. Now, this was not, he didn't specifically say, you know, hey, I want to talk to you about shadow people. He just mentioned it as one of the things that he saw. And right then and there, something clicked in my mind. And I started hearing it everywhere.
Well, in my reading, one of the things I learned is that there has been an increase.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to get into that, too.
The amount of people reporting shadow people. Like on the internet, it's just everywhere. So
yeah, I'm going to get into that in a little bit when we talk about the history.
We'll definitely talk about that. But it's just kind of interesting that it's not surprising to me that you started to hear about it everywhere.
Yeah, so after that interview that I had with Mike Morrissey, I saw a lot of people mention them on social media, and actually some other people that we talked to, which we're going to get into that in a little bit, they mentioned shadow people too. And it wasn't the topic of what we were there to talk to people about. So that's where I find it kind of odd, and I wanted to tackle this one right away.
Definitely.
I thought it was really important. So now this is just some of my interview with Mike Morrissey. Rebecca wasn't there at that time. We do plan to play more at another time, but for right now, here is Mike telling us about the shadow people that he saw.
All right, so can you tell us your name?
Hey, this is Mike Morrissey.
All right, and so you have a couple ghost stories to tell us.
Yes, I do. I've been, I guess you could call me an amateur ghost enthusiast for a couple years now, but I'm the type of guy that will go out of my way to find them and see them. And I was once a skeptic, just like you, Pat. But I always say seeing is believing.
Definitely.
And I think I've seen enough. I've seen enough to call myself a believer. So
definitely. I mean, my thing is I want to believe. I want there to be proof that makes me have to change my mind. I just haven't seen it yet.
Well, if you were ever to go to these places that I'm going to tell you about, you just might see one, man.
Oh, awesome! I'm excited.
So we're all familiar with the TV show Ghost Adventures. With, Zach and his crew.
Yeah,
I've been to a couple of the places that have been on his show. Two of which are in Kentucky. And the first one was the Waverly Hills Sanitarium in Louisville. Louisville, great city, a lot of cool history there. But the Waverly Hills Sanitarium is totally legit. I've heard some people say it's like in the top 25 most haunted places on the planet. I'd probably agree with that. For those that don't know, And you can go to their website. It's therealwaverlyhills.com.
Okay.
But for those that don't know, I'll give you a brief history of the place. It was a tuberculosis hospital in the 20s. And I think they closed up in maybe the 80s, but they say over that time, over 60,000 people died in this building.
Wow.
So that's a lot of death. I mean, I don't know if that number is accurate, but
even if it's half of that, I mean, that's an incredible number.
Oh yeah. The history of this building is insane. They did they tested different things there, like kind of morbid stuff. They would take just, trying to cure this disease of tuberculosis. They were doing experiments. They would cut people open, remove their bones, remove their lungs, and then put them back in and sew them up. And that just, that just made things worse. For the windows, there was no glass. It was open. So during winter, they thought, the cold winter air will help these people's lungs. All these people froze to death.
Wow.
So it's 5 floors, and they say the 4th floor is like the most haunted. There's a story of a nurse who hung herself, this and that. But I guess, over the years, it was vandalized and just abandoned. And then I think a couple in the late 90s bought it, and they still own it today. They kind of fixed it up, but there's no running electricity in the building at all. So there's no way of there's no way of doing, like, say, like a hologram or to project something on a wall. The place has always had like the myth, the urban legend of it. Oh, it's haunted. So they started doing tours, figuring, we can, make money off of this. And I've been there twice. The first time I walked in as a skeptic and definitely walked out a believer because I saw shadow people. That is like the only way I can describe it. You look at your shadow on the wall or on the floor, and you know what it looks like. But when this thing is like standing right next to you, or like a couple feet away from you, it's like, that's weird.
Yeah.
But the first time I was there and I seen them, there was tall ones, short ones, all peeking around corners and like just moving real fast. I wasn't scared. I just felt it was a strange feeling. I felt very like conscious, alert, and awake. Like, okay, the sky is blue, the grass is green, and there's a ghost standing right there.
All right. So, just thinking about being in that area and seeing those shadow people, it kind of freaks me out. I mean, I have to admit. But then, while we were talking with Carl from thepath-to-bachelor'sgrove.com, he brought them up to us too while we were at Bachelor's Grove.
Yeah, it was really weird. It was one of those things where we had just decided that was going to be the episode, and we're talking to him, and then it was like it came up in conversation.
Well, I actually asked him about it before we started recording. But I don't know if that put that in his head or anything like that. He didn't seem to understand exactly what I was talking about with shadow people until he brought it up. So
yeah, maybe it kind of came out,
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of windy that day too and everything. So, all right, so here's part of Carl's interview where he talks about shadow people in Bachelor's Grove.
I'm at Wendy Moxley Row.
Okay.
Carl K.
And you guys are from thepath-to-bachelor'sgrove.com.
We are the path-to-bachelor'sgrove.com and Facebook advocates, researchers, and friends of the Grove, just like you.
Caretakers.
Caretakers, you come in here and clean up.
Yeah.
Throw some branches, crossing the creek. Many people say when they cross the creek they have trouble breathing, heavy chest. That's where we have seen a couple shadow people. I call them kites. They were in the trees more than in the ground. Something
just
black.
Shadows,
yeah, just moving. And others saw it when we were all together.
Wow. That's something. All right. So, wow. And, I do have to say that we posted on our Facebook page, and there were some comments too about shadow people in there, that people have seen them.
And I also I'm involved in some of these paranormal investigator groups on Facebook, and somebody mentioned shadow people, and I said what I believe, and they got really upset with me. So I'm hoping that nobody gets upset with me over this episode. I do really respect your beliefs. I just have different beliefs. That's all. But before we get into the great debate, we should probably do a little history lesson.
Absolutely.
All right. So I have some stuff. You want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first, and then I'll add what I found.
Yeah. Although shadow people have been reported throughout history, the amount of these sightings have increased since the 1980s, which is something that you mentioned. Harley Swift Deer Reagan, Thunderstrike, he also goes by, talks about the Cherokee people speaking of these beings since 1153 BC.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's a really long history there. He says that they're parallel dimensional beings, and he believes that there was an awakening in the 80s and increasing since the year 2000.
Wow.
So that's why there's been a lot more of these sightings lately, is because there's this big awakening event that occurred.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I learned, a couple of things. One is the Romans, actually, I guess the Greeks would be before the Romans. So the Greeks had in their mythology, Erebos. I'm going to go with Erebos, excuse the pronunciation, but who is a primordial deity who personified darkness. And that it's this place of darkness between the earth and the underworld where the dead pass immediately before dying. And so they kind of had this, like, they had a god of darkness. And then the Romans referred to their dead as shades.
Yes.
And that was basically like what they called so they're like entities that had, like, they could be like bad, or they could be just good spirits, but they kind of always were associated, or a lot of times were associated with darkness and dread.
Yes.
So they've been around a while. The other references I found that I thought were interesting just in like culture were wraiths.
Yes.
So wraiths have been around for a long time. And obviously we think of Tolkien and the ring wraiths.
The ring wraiths, yeah.
And how they're kind of like shadow people. And then the other is Harry Potter Dementors.
What?
Oh, I'm such a huge Harry Potter fan. So that was very cool to think about that those are kind of a part of it. But the other thing is religions all have their variations of things. One of the biggest actually is Islam.
Yeah.
The Quran specifically mentions pitch black sapient beings that aren't entirely spiritual or physical. And there's I don't want to go into too much detail, but they have a whole classification system for different kinds of beings.
Wow.
But that one seemed really interesting. And then there's a woman that we should mention, Heidi Hollis, who basically coined the term shadow people.
Yes.
And she described, or she said, this is a quote from her Coast to Coast interview.
Yeah, Coast to Coast with Art Bell.
With Art Bell.
Rest in peace, Art Bell.
Yes. Shadow people have been around since the beginning of time and are a dark influence upon society. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
So again, that was her opinion of it. So they've been around for a long time, but maybe not necessarily described exactly like we do today.
Sure.
And then just one other thing I wanted to mention, because I really like what you said as far as like he believes there's been an awakening. One explanation that I thought was interesting too is that we have so much more EMFs in our world, like a lot of energy.
Yes.
And that because there's all this more energy that we have today, like we don't know what real silence is anymore because we always have electronic things going on and there's a lot of energy. And so these beings can pull on that energy to form.
Wait, so you mean the Walkman that I had in the 80s? That's what was causing these things to come out more?
And not just your Walkman.
Uh-oh.
Your refrigerator, your boom box.
Oh, yeah, I did have one of those.
You had a boom box. You know you did.
I used to carry that around and play Run DMC.
Your keytar.
And yeah, I definitely had one of those, yeah.
Anyway, so that I thought that was an interesting explanation for why we might be seeing them more.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt you, even though I did a couple times, but I didn't want to stop you and say that the wraiths and stuff like that, not exactly the same thing.
No.
Because when it comes to shadow people, usually as soon as somebody sees the shadow person, it starts to dissolve.
Well, or walk away.
Yeah.
No, I agree. They're definitely not exactly the same, but I think part of it is this, we have the collective unconscious and this idea that we see these things and we may not even always be conscious of seeing shadow people. Yeah. And so then somehow they come out in our art and in our religion and in our writings that we have. So it's this kind of, it's there and it's been around a really long time. And so it forms of that appear
absolutely.
in what we create.
And also there are shadow animals too.
Yes.
Yeah. But most of the time they are feline. There's there might be like a wolf or something like that, but you hardly ever see like a squirrel.
I know. I read one.
A shadow squirrel, which would scare me a lot.
Yes, you're very scared of squirrels.
I'm not scared of squirrels. Let me make a point here. Squirrels are up to no good. We need to be aware of these squirrels, and we need to watch them.
You listened to, was it a podcast or was it a YouTube video on
It was
squirrels?
a podcast.
It was a podcast. Okay. Yeah. Now you're aware. You're woke.
I'm woke about squirrels.
Okay.
Yeah.
And their danger.
And their danger. Yeah.
Okay.
So there are shadow animals too, but most of the time it's people that they see. And there's no women in white in this episode, right?
No, there's no woman in white in this episode.
Wow.
Definitely.
Our first episode without a woman in white. Wow. Okay. Well, I think maybe it's time for the debate.
Okay.
Unless you have anything else to add before we get into that.
No, I think that's good. Yeah.
Oh, well, we haven't had a good debate in the last couple of episodes because it was Christmas, and we thought that we would, not bicker back and forth, and you get that with your family sometimes, right? I mean, not your family.
We have a productive discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. We do. But there are some families, it is notorious for this time of the year when they all get together that there can be bickering. So we decided not to do that. But you know what? Christmas is over.
Christmas is over.
And now we need to put the gloves back on. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so do you have any evidence that you'd like to present to our awesome listeners right now?
Sure.
Yeah. Ladies first, always.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, so it's hard because, like you said, we're not really picking a specific story.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I don't want to like single out any one person or one particular story, but I will say that I've read a lot of really interesting stories. And one of the ones that I read was about a woman who, and I apologize because I'm now, it's not coming to me in my head what source this was from, but basically she had two shadow people that she saw several times in her life. And one she called Blue, and I think it was, and the other she called the helper or the medic, something like that. And it was basically the Blue was one that she would see that wanted to always make her happy.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And it was really interesting. So it's like she would maybe be playing, and if she was sad or something, he would like appear. Ooh. And like she was a kid, so she just wasn't.
Wouldn't that be the helper
scared.
One, though?
Well, no. So the helper one, Blue seemed kind of interesting just because, he was like, he was like wanted to be nice to her and play with her. But the helper, so she was at school, and there was a like a drill for, where you had to hide under your desk or whatever it was,
okay.
Kind of a thing.
The bomb
drills, things or whatever. And so, but it was a drill. It wasn't real. But so everyone was hiding, and for some reason she was like really, I don't know, kind of zoning out and not like paying attention to, or like, I don't know, I should say everyone was laughing and joking and she wasn't. She was kind of taking it a little more seriously. And all of a sudden she kind of saw out of the corner of her eye a person in the like a classroom next door. There was like a door going into that classroom. And all of a sudden, this like being like came in and like came to her and was like shielding her almost from like seeing what was going on. And then it was like all of a sudden it was over and that person was gone. And there were like other times in her life where these two beings would show up. So that was just kind of interesting to me because this is, so a lot of times we hear these stories and we'll get more into this, I'm sure, as you talk, as far as like reasons that you could see these things that are scientific, right? But
who, me? Science? What?
But like there are these stories of people, and I'm going to add some pictures too online, where it's not about just seeing it out of the corner of your eye. It's like these people are seeing these beings fully formed in front of them, or sitting down somewhere, and I was surprised how many of them actually weren't scared. I think the people that are more scared are the ones that see them out of the corner of their eye, or it's part of waking up and they see something. But people that just kind of like see the being is like, they don't always feel scared of it. And I don't know, the fact that it could be not a ghost of a person, but like something from another dimension or another world, a multiverse, right? Like,
yeah, I watch Flash, so I know all about that.
Well, it's part of string theory. And like that just to me is like, that's so exciting. The idea that it could be an alien. So, I mean, there's more, but like I said, it was hard to pick just one story. That just was one that kind of stuck with me. But
well, I have a story too, actually.
Okay, go for it.
So when I was younger, me and my cousin, Frank Pearson, he's a listener too, so he's going to hear his name in this. And I haven't told him I was going to tell this story.
Oh.
So I was spending the night by his house, and we got into our beds and turned the lights off, and there we saw E.T. with no head. It was the body of E.T. with the neck, but no actual head. Yeah, so we saw a shadow person. But then we turned the lights on and we realized it was the antenna from his TV. We were both a little freaked out about that.
Yeah.
But we talk about it often. We talk about E.T. with no head. So
I like the squat body and like the big, long arms and everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And E.T., for a kid was kind of scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any other evidence that you wanted to talk about?
So, I mean, I think we can tell. So, okay, I'll read this one. This is from a website, Shadow People. Shadowpeople.org. It's the official Shadow People archives. And there's a lot of really amazing stories on this website. I mean, there's just thousands, like over the years, like it's crazy. But this one, so the first time I saw a shadow person, I was 10. I was home alone doing my homework in my room when I decided to get some water from the kitchen. On the way back, I looked into my living room and I saw it, the shadow person. It was extremely tall and seemed to be darker than darkness itself. I still remember how it felt to see it. I was terrified and calm at the same time, and I couldn't seem to look away. After what seemed like an eternity, I got enough control of myself to blink and it was gone. The next time I saw a shadow person was 7 years later. I was at my girlfriend's house, alone in the house, watching a movie with her in the basement.
And she saw E.T. with no head.
She needed to go to the bathroom, so I decided to get some more snacks. As I closed the refrigerator door, I looked up into her parents' room, which was directly opposite the kitchen entrance, and saw my second shadow person. This one was different, less clear, and seemed to be made of smoke. So that was a little different than what you normally hear. The change in appearance didn't change its effect on me. Afterward, I asked my girlfriend if she had heard anything weird in her house, and she looked at me like I was crazy. My latest encounter was just over 6 months ago. I was at home watching TV when I felt a chill run down my back. I turned around and there it was, but more intense than before, exactly as it was the first time I saw it. I am sure that this was not the last encounter I will have, and I don't know if I'm prepared for the next encounter.
Okay, well, I was going to save this for a little bit later, but so there is a pattern that happens around people that are sleep deprived or just waking up.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually a psychologically proven fact that people can see these kind of things when they're half asleep or when they haven't had enough sleep. So I really believe that since the 80s, we have been living a busier life. And I believe that because of that, we have not been getting the same amount of sleep that we used to get. Sleep is not as important to our society. We want everything quick. We want everything now. And we go to work on 5 hours sleep. You know, I believe that makes it more possible to see these kind of things. I don't know if they're really there. I'm just saying that our mind plays tricks on us sometimes. And my viewpoints on this are not going to exactly be the most popular viewpoints. I'm going to say that right now because I got my butt whooped in those forums just by saying what I'm about to say. I just want you to know that this is based upon science, and I'm not saying that this is every single person that has seen it. I am just saying that there is some science behind these shadow people. So there's been a lot of scientific research into this exact phenomenon, which we don't have when it comes to ghost per se. Most scientists just kind of write off the idea of ghost. Mm-hmm. They don't really try to prove or disprove that. Mm-hmm. But with this has become something big since the 80s. So they really have been pushing the grounds to try to figure out exactly what these things are. And scientists have seen a pattern that people that suffer from mental illnesses, especially schizophrenic or paranoia. Paranoia. Yeah, sorry. The word was there. I just couldn't say it. They have reported encounters with shadow people. And I'm not saying that I believe that anyone that has seen these things suffer from mental illness at all. But what I am saying is that it shows that there is a possibility that our minds have something that can see these things. It's kind of like when you look at a shape, your mind kind of fits different things into that shape. For instance, have you ever read one of those paragraphs where they had a lot of words misspelt inside there? Like every single word was misspelled, just slightly, like they moved the vowels around or something like that. And you can still read every single word, and you don't even realize that all these words are misspelled until you start focusing on the individual words. Our mind is amazing. It can do these things where it puts shape to things that aren't really there. And it fills in voids. It puts together the puzzle piece that you're missing. And I believe that could be a lot of what people are seeing is just filling a void that they need.
So I think that, and I wanted to mention too, one of the big sources for me this episode is a book called The Paranormal Researcher's Guide to Shadow People by Charisse Branson. And so one of the things that she talks about is that we have to, even as people that maybe believe, right, things, that we still have to accept evidence, right? And I think that not every shadow person sighting maybe qualifies as a paranormal event, because I do think if you see something when you're waking up, if you suffer from sleep paralysis, that's a big one, which is terrifying on itself.
It is. I was going to say that too.
Oh
that sleep paralysis, there actually is something that clicks in your mind that makes these shapes appear.
Mm-hmm. And there's that wake. And even if you don't have that, it's like that time between like waking and dreaming, you know? So to me, if someone came to me and told me a story about seeing a shadow person just as they woke up, I am less inclined to automatically say that that's a shadow person. But there's a lot of stories out there where it's a person who is wide awake, not sleep deprived, where they have these sightings. And, you know, again, if it's just out of the corner of your eye, it's a really dark room, like your ET sighting, it makes sense to me most of the time. These are not shadow people. But there are sightings, broad daylight, you know, where, you know, people see these beings. And the fact that the tall man keeps being something that
the man with the hat.
Sorry, the man with the hat is the thing that people keep seeing. And I don't know. It's just one of those things like, how is it that these people can all have these similar experiences and it not being something?
And I understand that. And you know, this is not going to be an exact science. I'm not a scientist, actually. I design e-learning materials for people. So if we were going to talk about that, I could probably be an expert in that field. I'm not exactly an expert in this. And that's the reason why we're doing this, this podcast is because we're not experts, because we are genuinely searching for answers.
Absolutely.
But what I will say, given your same idea, one of my biggest things of evidence will always be that they don't have one captured. They don't have definitive, clear evidence on footage. They do not have video. They do not have these kind of things where you can clearly see this. I've looked and I have seen pictures. Shadows appear in pictures a lot. That could be because of lighting. We don't know that for sure, but we do not have one of them in captivity.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I have seen some pretty convincing photos.
Yeah.
So I will definitely,
Not me.
Well, I will definitely put them out on our site for people to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty creepy.
Well, I look forward to seeing them. I think it's time for our closing arguments then, right?
Yes.
All right,
definitely.
Let me get my phone out because what we do here.
Are you going to go first this time? I
no,
went first
it's
last time.
Ladies first all the time.
Oh, I see. So then you get to always finish.
Well, I mean, it's not always that way. It's All right, so we said that you have 1 minute.
Okay, you're going to time me.
I'm going to time you with my phone.
Okay.
So everybody's going to hear the timer when it's done.
Okay.
Okay? Are we ready?
Sure.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so I believe that shadow people are real. I think that there is a lot of energy in this world, and it has increased exponentially the last few years, and that there are beings that draw upon that energy and show themselves. And I like the idea that, to me, that they're not necessarily ghosts, but that they are travelers or aliens, people from another dimension, and that they are showing themselves to us. I actually don't think that they mean us harm. However, I have heard people say if they have red eyes, that you should be careful of them because they're probably a demon. I certainly wouldn't always trust them. If you, I have had stories of people having conversations with them. I would always be careful about that. But I believe they exist. And I think that there are too many people that have told too many stories. I don't think that every story is real, but I think enough of them are.
All right.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was it. And again, I'm having trouble canceling it, so give me 1 second. There you go.
All right. I got my timer ready from my phone.
Okay. Let me know when I could begin.
Okay. All right. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Go.
Science has shown us that the simplest answer is usually the truth. Is it easier for us to believe that there is some kind of demon entity that exists and we've never been able to capture them or for research purposes? Or is it easier to believe that our brains are so powerful that we have this problem-solving bio machine going at all times that fills in pieces of the puzzle without it actually being there? For me, the answer is clear. It is simpler for us not to believe than to believe. There is simply no scientific evidence that supports shadow people, and although they are dark and scary, they are just in our minds.
You still have 12 seconds.
All right. Well, E.T. with no head, though, was a shadow person, and he was really scary until I turned the lights on.
There you go. Okay, there you go. You got it.
All right.
There we go.
So, again, we will have a poll up on our website. Thank you guys for going and voting this time. We really appreciate it. We had more votes than we usually do, and we put out the poll kind of late for Halloween.
Yeah, we did.
I apologize for that.
Yeah, we appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But, it is all in your hands now.
Yeah, seriously, you guys need to weigh in on this one.
Yes.
Because we did not. You need to tell us what's the truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode. And our next episode will be another in our Bachelor's Grove series. And
we went back.
We did go back. And it comes out on January 23rd.
Ooh, there might even be video.
Ooh. Yeah, I don't know. Last time I put up video, people don't understand that podcasts are these things that you download that are audio. They're like, yeah, I watched that first one that you did.
Oh,
it's like,
no, you have to listen.
Yeah,
That's okay.
You have to listen still. So if you liked what you heard, I'm not going to ask you to review, although that would be great. I'm not going to ask you to rate us even, although, again, that would be great. I am going to ask you to tell one of your friends.
Oh,
Word of mouth is a huge influence when it comes to new podcasts starting off.
Absolutely.
And we are at our 6th episode now.
Mm-hmm.
That's big time.
It is.
I mean, we're moving up.
Yeah.
Eventually, we're going to have a 7th episode.
We're going to have 10 episodes. No, we've got so much great stuff planned for this year. Oh my gosh, we've got so much coming up. So please tell your friends. If they don't know if they've never listened to podcasts before, help them out. Honestly, like grab their phone and be like, I am putting Ghostly on here for you and subscribing to it for you.
Yeah, especially if you know that they're going to love it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done that for people. Mm-hmm. We are going after listeners one at a time now.
One at a time. Yes.
Also, too, I'm going to kind of spill the beans on something right now. We are going to be having a contest coming up.
Yes.
I'm not going to tell you what the contest is, but there will be prizes, actual prizes.
Actual prizes.
We have a sponsor.
So exciting.
Yeah, and I'm going to give a shout out to them right now. So you could go on their website and look at some of the great merchandise that they have, and we will be offering some of those as prizes. So they are Dead on Paper.
Great name.
They are one of my favorite companies. I reached out to them. They didn't reach out to me. They didn't know who we were. But I love them. Now, what I've bought from them are coins that have like skeletons on them and stuff like that. There's a hobo coin. There's a oracle coin that has yes and no on it. You might have seen, I actually posted a picture of it a while ago on our Facebook page. So Dead on Paper, they also put out...
Wait, I was going to say, can I say my favorite thing that they
have?
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
Is playing cards, but they're tarot playing cards.
Yes, you could use them for both.
Cool. I mean, seriously. It's like, oh, we're going to play poker? Wait, no, let me tell you your future.
Yeah, and they sent us a lot of merchandise to give away to our listeners. So we're going to have contests that's going to help them and us.
Yeah,
grow.
So be sure that you listen. Be sure to get your friends to listen so that you can be a part of that.
Yeah, officially, we are going to announce that on our Valentine's Day episode, which will be February 6th.
Yeah,
February 6th will be our Valentine's Day episode. So we look forward to bringing you all these ideas that we have, and there is so much more to come.
So much more to come.
So we want you to download our next episode when it comes out, and we will talk to you again then.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.